Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. We've got a fairly packed show. There'll be no Q&A tonight. There's too much to cover. And the usual news and views, which is shortened. Some sub-intel, some intel, and some rockin' op-ed pieces to boot. Now, I've warned several times in several shows now, people would go ugly and a bit nuts, and it's happening everywhere now, not just in and around THI or the alt media circles. We are in the phase of chaos and madness, and it's important for us all to hold on to our own dignity and sanity. Let them thrash about and just observe. In a week where Pelosi's face is not the only portion of her vessel going into meltdown, her brain also. Described as an iconic symbol of America, some said. The rest of the world says national embarrassment. That woman spent too much time in California vineyards, Mrs. Pelosi. The same vineyards that are protected from wildfires, earthquakes, and direct energy weapons. Funny that, isn't it? Right. A few things to cover before we go into the news. The THI Nevada group has been closed down this week due to people infiltrating it, and also people not from that state and playing games. You know, it's up to you all to protect who's coming into your group and define whether they're from that state or not. So Nevada has been removed from the THI sheet altogether. No group, no automatic funding. It's that simple. You know, if you're not going to be responsible for looking after your own group, how can you be responsible for the trust funds? Remember, we are the guardians of it. People have to understand that. Given the ongoing issues and the abuse that the admins are receiving, we are close to shutting down all the THI groups, as even after 6 months of people not following basic guidelines and acting in a better manner, is not suggested that they will look after the funds of the trust either. You know, many are resembling the failed dragon guardians entrusted to look after them in that letter last week. Now, should that happen, we will endeavour to collect the few who have done the things the right way into smaller committees to focus on specific tasks. You know, those groups were for your benefit, not mine. A chance for you all to be involved in the process. And yet what has been observed is posturing, marketing strategies, people trying to divert the funds into other groups or private interests. You know, for the first time we were all given a say in how things could change. And yet only the few have took up that opportunity and did things the right way. Can't blame me or Kim or the government or the cabal for that, and it is disappointing to say the least. I've also been made aware that there are a few protagonists emanating out of Tank's group trying to divert our members over to the Create Change via the state groups. I have no idea whether Tank is aware of it or not, but, you know, it's a free will choice. If people wish to join Tank's group, fine. Fine by me. People wish to join the Bubba group, fine by me also. It won't change what I or we are doing. But be aware there are other plants from the Bubba group, the Keenan team, Cosmic Voice, and the former group known as the Kingdom of Mana. Spreaker. Oh, we knew this was coming. The Spreaker platform in their wisdom this week no doubt supported by clowns in America and their algorithm games, decided to alter the figures for all the shows, the number of listeners. They said it was a new way of calculating it. Yeah, I knew what was coming next, as I refused to monetize Spreaker or YouTube by allowing ads on our shows. It's against my principles. Plus, this show is too far over the target, and it creates a vast shadow over the clowns globally. So Spreaker changed the show listener figures and dropped every show that I've done by around 50%. You have to laugh at their stupidity. They can drop them another 50% again for all I care. I'm not interested in numbers. We know who listens, and we know how far the show goes. So I decided for THI, we'll do our own adverts. Let's try some of these. Hey kids, instead of being divergent, be detergent. Buy Tide Pods, the perfect snack between meals for hungry and errant children. Half price on a full moon. Are you worried about climate change? Save the climate. Eat babies. Brought to you by Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood and the DNC, with generous donations from the Rockefeller Foundation. Tired of throwing your money away on banking fees? Here's the solution. Buy Bitcoin, the ultimate in fresh air tokens, all stored safely for you on some elderly Chinese person's computer. Or try this one. Help erase the world famine crisis. Eat plastic cheese and rice. Never had measles, rubella or mumps? Well, don't worry, we have the solution for you. You can solve that by having your friendly doctor or nurse inject it into you via a syringe. Vaccines are safe. Here's the list of side effects. It may cause wild shites, cancer, heart defects, menstruation in men, erections that last longer than 4 hours, baldness, gout, acne or death. Brought to you by the World Horror Organization, injecting poisons into humanity since 1948. Men, do you have a testicular problem? One is a different size to the other. Go to our specialist Chinese herbalist, Dr. Wan Hung Lo, and all will be cured. These adverts brought to you by the CIA and NSA and should not be interpreted as an endorsement by this host show or group. Should have got Drake to speed read that last piece. So there you have it, Spreaker. We've done some advertisements. In a recent video involved in and connected to the alt media ring of subversion, harassment and defamation cult, she wanted to know what's happening or what can we do, and was suggestive of not revealing operations. Here is a reminder.
What's happening? What's progressing? What can we do? Nothing. Sorry, that's operational. I could say a lot more about what I do know, but I won't. And it's not a secret, but it's just not worth wasting my energy on.
The following is what happened, is what we did. And I will now reveal one of the things that was operational. And while she's not in that group along with Jennifer Marquise, who wrote that script along with Marilee Niatane, the echo chamber is now resonating to a different tune, as it were. She and Jen are and will be under investigation as co-conspirators. On Tuesday, after collecting several pieces of documented evidence on several lead characters in Team Bubba, involving threats, character assassination with no proof, defamation, slander, and impersonating at the FBI, and or insinuating FBI involvement within their group, which is actually a felony. Links, screenshots, and other documented evidence of obscene taste and discourse, including the one making a conspiracy and the taunting of Kim and her dead brother, all of which was supported by the 57 members. Some even went to great lengths to praise the poster for bringing it up. Not one said that had gone too far. That makes all 57 members complicit. All files have now been forwarded to the FBI to provide a case, which will likely lead at this point to a lawsuit against all 57 members for character assassination, defamation and slander based on the lead people in the group to extort money out of Kim and the trust. He, Rhea, has done this before. You were all warned of it and chose to continue to participate in it. There is a precedent for this type of claim, as Robert David Steele is suing the Truth Network group of 3 people for $6 million each. Lead members of the Bubba Rhea group can expect a similar amount of damages against them. All others can expect an amount of at least $1 million each, should we choose to pursue it. Upon a successful completion of that lawsuit, some of the funds will go to those who have been harmed, like myself, Kim, Randy, Alan, and also Chloe, the bulk of which will go to the People's Club to fund projects. All 57 names, including the fake names, which will be traced back to IP addresses, and the names of the cowards who demanded transparency whilst they hid behind masks, will no doubt be revealed within the FBI investigation. As for those who claim in the group we are not part of David Rhea, we have screenshots and emails of several of you referencing David Rhea. That has also gone in the files to the FBI. On top of all that, there is a separate and very serious implications and details surrounding that group. The lead protagonist, David Rhea, along with other members within that group, will be investigated about their participation or not in a child auction site based off a Lithuanian server and several other connected child pornography sites. From what I understand about that matter is they are auctioning off very young children for sexual purposes and worse. We will allow the FBI to do its job on that particular matter. In light of the last piece, one must raise the question, not a statement of fact. I want to make that clear. That there is a common theme amongst people currently to accuse others of doing what they have participated in. David Rhea, a prime example. Democrats, another. But you have Ter Joyce, connected to and with Stephen Kelly, along with Lily Earthling, who has a known pedo listed in her friends list, I might add, and David Rea, plus other members of that group accusing Randy Morgans of being involved in server porn, when now that group and those people are under investigation for the same thing. Coincidence? Not my choice to make or to infer in any way, but it does beg the question. I guess the GIA and THI trumps the Fisher-Price spy kits. Members and listeners, can we all have a group hug for your patience, tolerance and dignified manner you handled and exposed this group, and as a collective all say oops. Hi all, and welcome back. You know what? Personally, I find that last piece sad. Yes, it can be funny. I shouldn't do, given the lies and slander and deliberate defamation of me with zero proof to support it. Just throwing shit. But it's still sad. Did I wish for it to go this far? No. But I did try several times to get them to see through their own stupidity. But they are wrapped in their own darkness, a pit of their own making that just got deeper. The next pit might just have bars on them. We reached out on the show to give one of their main protagonists a helping hand, Madeline Niatane. She reacted by going deeper into the pit with even worse thought processes and actions. It's a sorry state of affairs that people will go so far down they cannot see the light, or reach out to it when offered. Now, since that update, that was on Tuesday, the FBI have done a review and an assessment of the case, and I'm told they believe that it's sufficient to push forward with this and have now opened a case file. All of you in that group are now under investigation. You brought it all on yourselves. You allowed yourselves to be swayed by some very dark elements within that group. David Rea knew the score from the off. In his emails to me and Kim, he stated, quote, "Thomas is smart and has integrity," unquote. Oh my, he has integrity. But because I wouldn't play to his fake gallery, suddenly my integrity turns into I'm a con man and a thief. He's a bigger flip-flopper than Drake. Deborah Heap Cale, Richard Hobbs, Thomas Packard, Lacey Eckhart, Andrew Simmons. Oh dear. Kaz of Australia. You still think you made the right move to switch to them? None of you were tricked into joining that group. All went because your vibrations are so low, you attracted it. I still find it sad though. Right, let's get into some news. Republicans in the US House of Representatives have announced plans to introduce a sanctions bill against Turkey for its offensive in Syria this week. And Congressman of and daughter, offspring of Darth Vader, Liz Cheney, said Turkey must face serious consequences for mercilessly attacking our Kurdish allies. Ooh, What about mercilessly attacking Iraq or Afghanistan or Guatemala or Honduras or Venezuela or Colombia? You get the gist. And it comes as President Donald Trump has said he hoped to mediate the conflict, and Turkey moved into northern Syria on Wednesday after the president pulled US troops out of the area. No coincidence, as he pulls them out, violence escalates. I wonder who did that. Now, critics say the US withdrawal effectively gave Turkey the green light to begin its cross-border assault. No. Which President Tayyip Erdogan says it is to create a safe zone running for 480 kilometres along the Syrian side of the border. Now, Kurdish militias of the Syrian Democratic Forces control the cross-border areas, and groups Turkey calls terrorists who support an anti-Turkish insurgency. Now, the SDF have been key allies of the United States in the battle allegedly against the Islamic State group, and they say they've been stabbed in the back by the US, not the government. There are fears the operation could lead to an ethnic cleansing of Kurds and a revive of IS. A group of 29 Republicans in the Democratic-controlled House of Representatives have announced legislation which would impose sanctions on Ankara. If Turkey wants to be treated like an ally, it says, it must begin behaving like one. And they must be sanctioned for their attacks on our Kurdish allies. And Ms Cheney adds that Congress has had long concerns about the Erdogan regime's cooperation with US adversaries such as Russia. Change the script, will you? Get back in the bunker with your dad. Really, someone shut it up. Of course, there was no mention made of the US troop withdrawal with Mr. Trump. He did say he was going to do it, and twice now he said in two different countries he's going to withdraw, and then violence escalates. Coincidence? I think not. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said there is no blackmail in a phone call with Donald Trump that is at the heart of a possible attempt to remove the US president from office. This is not corruption, it was just a call, Mr. Zelensky said on Thursday, and a call prompted a whistleblower complaint and Democratic impeachment inquiry of the Republican president. Trump denies withholding US aid while pressurising Ukraine to investigate political rival Joe Biden. I don't know why he's bothering. Got no chance of winning anyway. Impeachment is a process by which Congress can vote to oust the president, although it requires support from a majority of both chambers, and as such, it is currently unlikely to pass in the Senate. And speaking to reporters at a news conference in Kiev, Mr. Zelensky said of the 25th of July call with Mr. Trump, there was no blackmail. It was not the subject of our conversation. He said the purpose of the conversation was to arrange a meeting with Mr. Trump, and there were no conditions from the American side. Zelensky also said he does not believe US-Ukraine relations will be affected by the impeachment inquiry. Albania, North Macedonia and Serbia have agreed to allow passport-free travel for their citizens by 2021 and a speedier cross-border flow of goods to boost regional economic development. And the President said we aim to create conditions for people to use only national identification cards for crossing the border. So no more Z-papers, please. and by the end of 2021 all three countries will be involved. And he told a news conference with the Prime Ministers of Albania and North Macedonia the move is not a specific requirement of the EU, but comes at a time when there's growing resistance within the bloc to further enlargement. Now, 6 Western Balkan countries, Albania, Bosnia, Kosovo, Montenegro, Macedonia and Serbia, are hoping to join the European Union, and their accession has been slowed down allegedly by Brexit and other factors. Now, the mutual relations of these states are also burdened by the legacy of the wars in the 1990s in the Balkans. Now, hopefully, from my point of view, these countries can get back on their feet and support each other. You have all been played by the same clowns in the Middle East, CIA and NATO. Stop funding them is the answer, and let that region start to teach the world a better way, like they did in the past with the Rus. People raising concerns over social media. I'm not surprised. Social media can be a powerful weapon for truth in the right hands, this article said. Unfortunately, Twitter and Facebook have done their best to keep it out of those hands, and people are starting to call them out for the damage they have done. It's hard to think of a company that's hurt this country more than Twitter, according to Fox News host Tucker Carlson this week in conversation with Congressman Devin Nunes, who is actually suing Twitter for allegedly permitting users to gang up on him. Gang stalking happens a lot. Sounds eerily similar, doesn't it not? And a repeating pattern, if you ask me. And he said, if you look at the hate, division and cruelty that's now common, it wasn't common 10 years ago. Twitter is a huge part of that. Now, the article said Carlson may be unfairly singling Twitter out, Facebook and, to a lesser extent, YouTube, who have also contributed to the rapid deterioration of civil discourse in the US. But as a whole, the major social media platforms are transforming a huge cross-section of America internet traffic into petty groupthink-driven drama factories. Oh my. The media saying what myself and Randy Morgans have been stating for years now, and yet we got lambasted for it. The article went on, worse, the ubiquity has made them all but imperative to anyone who hopes to work in any public-facing profession. After all, only an antisocial person would consciously avoid social media. I think they were saying that in irony. Twitter and Facebook keep users on their platform by serving up more of what the user likes. No, it doesn't. And the article says, creating an echo chamber. Did Marley write this? Oh my. That can be impenetrable depending on how comfortable the user is with unfamiliar ideas. And it said if one doesn't take care to interact with users elsewhere on the political spectrum, it's easy to believe that the entire country wants Donald Trump impeached, or that the average Iranian is hungry for regime change. Yes, it's all part of the Langley NSA algorithms nonsense. Pushing one, knocking down another. That's how it works. Now, studies have confirmed that the echo chamber phenomenon is strongest when it comes to political content, and users can make this worse by muting or blocking those they disagree with. When they do finally collide with reality, it was said that the awakening is seldom pleasant. Yes, we know that all too well. The acting head of US Homeland Security, Kevin McAleenan, has resigned after 6 months in the post. And in a tweet, President Trump said Mr. McAleenan wanted to spend more time with his family. An awful lot of people in the government who suddenly like their family, given a whole lot of them have other interests, shall we say. And he said his replacement would be named sometime next week. McAleenan is the fourth person to serve as the head of Homeland Security during Mr. Trump's tenure, and he's overseen the president's tough policies aimed at curbing immigration across the Mexican border. However, analysts have described a turbulent relationship between the two, and Mr. McAleenan has criticised the tone of the immigration debate. Now, just recently, Mr. McAleenan was shouted off stage by student protesters at a university in Washington, D.C. Where are we next? Avoiding dangerous global heating. Ooh, we're all going to die again. Will require governments around the world to impose stringent taxes on fossil fuel usage that will mean a 43% jump in household energy bills over the next decade, according to the IMF. What the average person doesn't know is the IMF are telling countries to push up energy prices, as a portion of that increase is going to them. Oops. And it's their new way to get funding along with the UN, and it's got nothing to do with global warming or climate change. Now, the Washington-based fraudsters, IMF, said the battle against climate change, let's all eat babies, oh dear, could only be won if the average carbon tax levied by its members states increased from, listen closely, $2 a tonne to $75 a tonne. Really? Not $2 to $3 or $2 to $4. No, $75 a tonne. Do they think we're all stupid? And the IMF said governments worried about a political backlash against big increases in the cost of heating homes and motoring should use the extra revenue raised from the tax to compensate consumers. I thought we had to pay for it. Yeah. You have 1% back in your taxes. Meanwhile, we'll increase your energy bills by 50%. And they went on to limit global warming, which has already been debunked, to 2%, not 2%, 2 centigrade or less, the level deemed safe by science, by science, bought and paid for grant people, the majority of which know jack and just repeat scripts given to them. Large emitting countries need to take ambitious actions, according to IMF economists. For example, they should introduce a carbon tax set to rise quickly to $75 a tonne in 2030. That date again. Their agenda, not ours. We'll have a different agenda for them long before then. This would mean house electrical bills would go up by 43% cumulatively over the next decade on average. More in countries that still rely heavily on coal in electricity generation, less elsewhere. Gasoline would go up 14% or more on average, and calculations by the IMF economists show that a $75 a tonne carbon tax would also lead, once inflation has been taken into account, to an average 214% increase in the cost of coal, 68% increase in national natural gas, and for the UK the increases would be 157% for coal, 51% for natural gas, 43% for electricity and 8% for petrol. Details of the IMF's call for a much bigger carbon tax came in a chapter from the organisation's biannual fiscal monitor released before its publication next week, and the IMF said it was calling for a substantially higher carbon tax because the carbon dioxide from fossil fuels accounted for almost 2/3 of global greenhouse gas and was the most immediately practical to control. Fine. If global energy is such an issue, make the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Bushes and other elite families that have reaped vast profits off this energy cartel. If there's an issue, it is they who should pay to repair any damage that has been caused to this planet by that cartel, not we. The Facebook fake checker, they call it fact, but it's fake. Very selective in the stories that they pick, generally rubbish and little to no relevance. But the editor-in-chief, Alan Duke, co-founded Lead Stories. After ending a 26-year career with CNN, where he mainly covered entertainment, current affairs and politics. And then you have Martin Schenk, who is described as the resident expert on fake news and hoax websites. And he likes to go beyond just debunking trending fake news stories, which is endlessly fascinated by the dazzling variety of psychological and technical tricks used by the people and networks who intentionally spread made-up things on the internet. Is he talking about the internet, or is he talking about the portal people? Seriously. These people are deluded. Federal prosecutors have filed multiple charges against a 23-year-old South Korean man accused of running what they call the world's largest dark web child porn marketplace. Connect the dots. The site is now shut, called Welcome to Video, contained more than 200,000 unique videos and nearly 8 terabytes of data showing sex acts involving children, toddlers and infants. According to an 18-page criminal indictment that was unsealed on Wednesday, and it also processed 7,300 Bitcoin transactions worth more than $730,000. Now, at a press conference Wednesday morning, US officials said 337 suspected users of that site had been arrested worldwide to date. The website ran solely on the dark web, a section of the internet that can only be accessed via a Tor browser or or a high street bank, which is designed to protect users' tracks online and obscure digital footprints. Now, users were purchasing videos using cryptocurrency, and an annual membership was priced at 0.03 bitcoins. At current exchange rates, that's around $300. Perhaps that's why the Bitcoin people thought about when they said they were getting around the system. Who knows? One would suggest with dark web entities this is the tip of the iceberg. Some sub-intel now. Amazon again. AI-based home security system. Did warn about this months ago. Is sending footage of users' private moments to dozens of algorithm trainers halfway around the world. Yes, you heard that right. This is according to former employees. Not unlike its Alexa smart speakers, it is said. Amazon CloudCam home security device regularly sends video clips to employees in Romania and India who help train its AI algorithms, according to 5 current and former employees who spoke to a news outlet this week. And the workers review the clips in order to help the system distinguish pet from threat, benign movement from malignant intruder. But the only problem is CloudCam users have no idea they're being watched by human eyes. Oh my. CloudCam's terms and conditions say nothing about humans watching footage from their security cameras, and an Amazon representative insisted that the only clips reviewed by employees are submitted voluntarily for troubleshooting purposes. Other than that, only customers can view their clips, which is a lie. Insisting Amazon takes privacy seriously, but there were no obvious technical glitches, it was said, that would indicate the clips were selected for troubleshooting, and some included obviously private content, specifically couples having sex, that customers were unlikely to have wanted to be shared. Now, 2 of the employee whistleblowers claimed the recordings of couples having sex were part of it. Now, the auditors typically watch and annotate about 150 20 to 30 second clips a day. If they're telling you that much, you can times that by at least 10. If it's running through an AI machine, then it can process thousands. Amazon acknowledged that clips containing inappropriate content are flagged and discarded so they are not used in training via the AI, but avoided explaining how the inappropriate content would have ended up in front of the trainers in the first place if, as the spokeswoman claimed, all clip submissions were voluntary. Amazon predictably has tried to keep a lid on the program, barring employees from using their phones on the floor where CloudCam clips are audited. And some of the juicier footage has leaked out, one source claimed. We did warn about this. You know, fridges, another one, these smart fridges. Smart means spy. Heard a lot recently of improvements in African countries. People coming together, people making gardens, people making energy machines, etc., etc., and people fighting back against the old system. And then this story comes up. Beggars belief, this day and age. The Ugandan government has announced plans to reintroduce legislation paving the way for the execution of homosexual people. 5 years after the bill was thrown out by the Constitutional Court on a technicality, the bill, dubbed Kill the Gays within Uganda, will be reintroduced within weeks, according to officials. Currently, Ugandans face life imprisonment if convicted of having sex with another person of the same gender. and the Ethics and Integrity Minister, Simon Lokodo, said the bill is being reintroduced because of allegedly massive recruitment of gay people and current laws are too limited in scope. Ethics and Integrity Minister? Dear me. We want to make it clear that anyone who is even involved in promotion and recruitment has to be criminalised. And those that do grave acts will be given the death sentence. Look. Very religious country, Uganda. Those that confess to love God and commit acts like these are as fake as a glass eye. The world should let them know that that is not acceptable. MasterCard, Visa, eBay, payments firm Stripe have all pulled out of Facebook's cryptocurrency project Libra. Their first move, reported in the Financial Times this week, follows the withdrawal also of PayPal and represents a huge blow to the social network's plan to launch what it envisions as a global currency. No. The project has drawn heavy scrutiny from regulators and politicians, particularly in the US, and Facebook chief Mark Zuckerberg, with a silent F, will appear before a House committee on the 23rd of October to discuss Libra and its planned rollout. Now, regulators have raised multiple concerns over Libra, including the risk that it may be used for money laundering. Of course, a lot of that money laundering has now been stopped, and they need it to continue. Mercado Pago, a payments firm serving mostly Latin America, also pulled out. That now means 6 of the payments-related firms first involved in Libra, just one, PayU, remains. PayU is a Netherlands-based company, and it did not respond for requests for comments when this was article was put out by the BBC on Friday. 2 other reminders of things that we've said on this show previously, not just in this show, but stuff I'd said back in CV also. Back in 2014, people with long memories will remember I warned Californians then of a potential issue of the elites tipping everyone out of California and having the state to themselves. Many didn't believe it. Now, since then, we've had water shortages, which is ridiculous. There is no water shortage, only a lack of investment, imagination and will. Fires done not to random areas, but key areas. Has anyone not noticed the Rothschilds and Pelosi vineyards haven't been touched? Yet private pot farms have. Coincidence? I think not. It went from drought to floods, and then let's drown people out via breaking the dams. House prices and rent forcing people out of the region is another deliberate policy. Introducing gang culture into a region is another deliberate policy. Having the borders open is another deliberate policy. Now we have, let's turn off their electricity and see if we can force more people to leave. Throw in the odd underground explosion and tell people California is going to sink and we're all going to die again via the San Andreas fault, and yet the Rothschilds, Pelosi's, Browns and Feinsteins all remain there. Funny that, isn't it? When will people see they're running a program in that state? That is happening in many other American regions. Chicago is another one. New York is another one. Miami, another one. Another thing I warned of back in CV, of casinos as one of the reasons behind Katrina. There was a drive back at the time when Katrina happened by an Israeli-based business group who ran the gambling ships off the coast of New Orleans. They wanted to go onto the land. Now, American law in many states, might be all, I know it's many, does not allow gambling unless it's on an Indian reservation. And those that have casinos on their land means they have sold out their land and people for a Western-style gains based on pieces of paper. And this is why I've warned many of the tribes have been or are corrupted, certainly at the chief levels. American law prevented those gambling ships from coming ashore. Those ships had to travel three miles out into what is called international waters to then be able to gamble. And then a story crops up this week that the new casino being built in New Orleans has collapsed and killed some people. But how can they do that? Well, first, you have to move the occupants of the land out. Then they make sure they don't have the funds to rebuild back on their land. Then what happens next is various brown envelopes are passed on to local politicians, and then they create a bill that this land is no longer habitable and needs to be rezoned. In comes some ancient tribe that lived there once. They just so happen to remember it and stake a claim to the land, which is then given back to them under conditions, and then they build the casino. That is what happened in New Orleans. Florida will be next. Intel. Listen closely. Further funds were allocated to various accounts in the past week in conjunction with the Federal Reserve, JP Morgan and other leading establishments. All funds went across and accounts deemed as pending, which means the transfers were successful. Then in came the blocker mechanism again, to stop and or divert the funds, this time directly from Langley. No surprise. Except all are aware now of who is the main issue stopping the liquidation of all banks, funds going to the government, the Pentagon, and the projects for the people. All now know. And it's time for them to take action accordingly. Several thousand, in fact near 750,000 of a certain group on this planet were deleted permanently this week, following a request to the Council which was agreed upon. The details of who and they will be revealed in From Russia with Love 8, which is coming soon, followed very quickly by 9. Suffice to say, the world is a better place without them. They are utter parasites. Or were. Further work with the banks and the quantum system has progressed rather nicely, is what I will say and can say at this point. But as always with this show, we exercise caution. We've had too many letdowns to make wild claims for clickbait on this show. And it only puts more pressure on those involved in it to deliver it. That we don't need. But what I will say is things are progressing rather well. Hi all and welcome back. Someone's knocking at the door. The tide has turned. These op-ed pieces are all combined in one way or another. And it was fairly powerful writing them. You will get the gist between now and the end of the show. It's about us, all of us. As above, so below. As within, so without. The great mirror effect that can work both ways. But people in general only see it as one way. But the mirror reflects back, and the eyes see what the brain tells them. But our eyes are limited, just a few percentage points of the spectrum. Our brains have had varying doses of MK Ultra. For most people on a non-physical level, but some have endured the tortuous physical level. Both render the individual a controlled or controllable asset. Designed to follow, must obey, all very they live. As an increasing public use of technology ensnares more into the subtle MK Ultra program. All people have endured MK Ultra in some form or other. To deny it is ignoring the problem. An all too common human trait. You watch TV, you play video games, partake in various social media. And like Tucker Carlson mentioned, one of the most damaging is Twitter. There is a reason they only allow you to post a certain number of characters. It's streamlining the narrative, so you operate in sound bites and headlines only, and then don't delve into the deeper aspects of the narrative. Reduction program. Via the television, controlling via the advertisement program, where adverts are strategically placed every 8 minutes or so, because they've managed to reduce the average American attention span down to 8 minutes now through TV programming. Remember, in the past the adverts were every half an hour or 20 minutes. They reduced the attention span to 8 minutes. That's why the adverts are every 8 to 10 minutes or even less. Video games are a massive problem. It is seeded with dark, malignant frequency music, dark subliminals that pulse into your brain, which is entrainment tactics, and frequencies that disrupt the brain thinking pattern. And it also encourages competitive streaks and win at all costs, which rolls into another program. They're riddled with violence and gory scenes where it's okay to run over people and shoot cops. And the military games always include the latest boogeymen. Have you noticed? Muslims, Iran, Russia, China, Cuba and North Korea. But these games are also connected to their AI network. And not only do they assess the strategies by each player, but more damaging is they are profiling each player registered on the network. Yet again, an example of how we do their job for them. So what the program does is they will set tests within the game. Which player will shoot at all costs and how far individuals will go to win the game. Will they cheat? Cheating is an advantage to those running the data profiling. Because if the person is willing to cheat in the game, they are willing to do other things more nefarious to attain their goals. Will the player in the game take out a key element with a single strike? Or will the player destroy the whole village to take out the one person? The person who does the latter is of interest to rogue elements in the military, the mercenaries and the security groups, and subsequent targeting of that individual to be pushed into those now live roles. This is how data profiling works. It's the same on social media. Do you think those life questions that pop up on Facebook are for entertainment? No. Those that fill in those questionnaires like, are you an empath? How spiritual are you? What is your IQ, etc.? And people all fill them in. And it all goes into the database, whereby you are profiled into labels and categories. Do you like this food or that item? Would you like to go on vacation? Would you like to buy this product or another product? It's all about setting you up for personal advertising, marketing. Now many will say, well, I never thought of it that way. How could we know they were doing that? Well, the answer becomes a question. Is why didn't you? Because you didn't look behind the mirror or the hidden hand. You accepted their image presented when all of their images are false or misrepresentations. You all know that by now. And the key to understanding it is, if you think on it, break it all down, observe it, assess where they can weaponize it against us, because everything else has been used as a weapon against us, harmed us, or tricked us. Then you can see where the program and the pattern is. Remember, they are the image, and also they are the hidden hand. They created the problem and the solution. They create the boogeyman and the saviour. It's like hospitals. They tell us they're there to make us better, and then they give us poisons to consume. They give people cigarettes to smoke, and it's all cool, remember? And then they tell you it's not good for you or your health. So we've already established they're not interested in our health. Otherwise, they would stop blocking genuine cures. They would stop putting shit in our food, water or air. And clowns would stop blocking cancer cure hospitals and the retarded people supporting it. Our life is consumed by supporting and upholding the lie. We argue over politics and not policies. We argue over politicians and not their voting records or what have they achieved for the people. If you select people based on image and personality, you get in return faceless drones with no thought process and certainly no solutions on anything relative. So how do I correct it? You correct it by fixing you. You've all took that responsibility. Life, politics and finances change. Those with a mastery of the self will see through all of their illusions. So how does that work and how can it be fixed? When you look in the mirror, you see one image, which is you. You are conditioned to see just you. Listen closely. You miss the shadows of the self, the ones not integrated into you, as you couldn't face that shadow aspect of you. But as an observer of you looking at you, you will see the shadows. If you go to the other side of the mirror, you will see you looking at you and back. Now you've seen through the illusion. Many of people will say now, well, you can't look through the back of the mirror. And I get that. Because your mind is entrained to think that way. The brain is a software and also programmable. You are the programmer once you are the master of you. With your imagination, you rewrite the program. But first, you must stop the limitation program. I can't do this, you can't do that. Says who? Teachers, science, portal people, psychologists. Since when and where they the bastions of delivering truth, knowledge or empowerment? It's all an illusion. Life is the mirror. When you add more mirrors, is there not more versions of you? But I thought there was just one. What is real? What is the illusion? Is it not the case everything is inverted in life, exactly the same as the mirror? Life today is about things being external when all is internal. In the external focus of most people is the I and not the we. This leads to selfish agendas. Life is all about me and others don't matter. The endless world of comparison and competition that has so damaged us all. So on the external, we are attempting to pull back the I and focus on the we, which is not an easy task, as many of you have found out. It's not an easy program to break. But then we have the inversion on the internal aspects, as within, so without. Internally, we are programmed to be the we, not the I, which is the reverse of the external traits. So what is the we he's talking about, many will ask? The we is in the brain. The two dueling hemispheres. One says, I want to do this. The other says, come on, you're too old, too weak, you can't learn this, you can't do that. How many of you have you said, I would love to do this, and then the excuse crops up in the head of why you can't? I would love to go to Paradise Beach, but the kids, the school, the time off work, the money, and the same applies to the projects many of you are working on. I can't take part in this project because blah, blah, blah. That's the limitation program installed into your brain. And shutting it off is the key. So internally, many face the problem of the dueling hemispheres, which is the we. Combining them, it becomes the I. So you shut off the hemisphere that has the limitation program. When you hear that voice in your head, shut it up. You control it. So the I, internally, when mastered, makes the we, externally, far easier. Once you have mastered the hemispheres, the next stage of the trinity within the head is to merge it with the third eye, the single unseen eye that sees more than the visual two eyes. Once that stage is complete, the next stage, providing the throat chakra is not blocked, is the cord to the heart. That is where your magic kicks in. Operating from there opens many doors, physical and non-physical. More senses than our basic limiting 5 senses, and the real definition of the warrior with the sword manifests. The two hemispheres of the brain are the two side handles of the sword. The third eye is the top of the handle. The cord to the heart is the blade. The blade, like the mirror, is double-edged. Use it wisely and it will serve you. Use it unwisely and it will cut you. That requires responsibility. Now, many don't like the responsibility, and so why too few achieve their own mastery. People all too content to let others do things for them. That means if things go wrong, they have someone else to blame. And that's why so many rely on the government, because governments fail because the people didn't take responsibility. Not because of politicians, because you are responsible having selected them to make them accountable. And ultimately people are responsible for the plight of the country and the government. We've just forgotten. And have neglected it to allow someone else to take the blame. And people have become so frightened of failure that it prevents them becoming who they should be or what they want to do. Failure is an opportunity to see where you went wrong. Failure brings lessons, the same as mistakes. And as the song always said, remember, a winner is only a loser who got back up and gave it one more try. So the key to the mastery of the self is, internally, the we must become the I. Externally, the I must become the we. But external only truly becomes possible with the internal mastered. Otherwise, it's another illusion of what you believe you are doing, not what you are doing. I hope people grasp that. What has been garnered over recent months is how fickle some people can be. Saw some further elements this week. And you can help people for weeks, months, and in some cases years, only for them to shit on you from a great height. Does it hurt? Yeah. But you learn to manage it better each successive time it happens. And some recent comments and their excuses for leaving THI is I don't like his stance on 5G, chemtrails, Bitcoin, blue chickens. And the classic this week, his comments on super soldiers that they are all killers, unquote. Stated by one woman as the reason for leaving THI and joining the hate group. Newsflash, lady, because you are ignorant of facts or too cowardly to face it. That information came from me speaking to 3 super soldiers in person. All of them said they work for or work currently or worked for the cabal as assassins. All of them. You don't think the clowns created super soldiers in black budget off-ledger programs for the greater good of the people, do you? Seriously. These people are as shallow as a dry riverbed in Death Valley. With that in mind, it leads to our final piece tonight, which will be in 3 parts. This is a global message and not necessarily directed at our group, but some aspects still apply to us all, me included. We'll be back after this music break. Hi all, and welcome what will be the final part, which is in 3 parts. Of tonight's show, What About Us? Like I said, this is a global message, but it also applies to our own members and our own listeners, and me also. There was a question that came up last week. What is human? Strange question to ask under normal circumstances, but these are not normal circumstances, are they? But can it be defined? What have we done to define it? With the varying cultures, most of which was created for us. All of them in some way are exclusive, not inclusive. riddled with errant ways, masks, false history and false present. Each culture presented with an image, yet none are free, and all conform to some ancient book or rituals passed down by the dark forces. I've covered most cultures and people around the world, and by and large not put them in a good light as a whole. Why? Do I really have to answer that question? You can all see why, but many refuse to face the reality. A world riddled in poverty, a world where the many don't have the basics in life, many people labelled as savages or third world without understanding the connotations of what's been said. The Western world, riddled in greed, overindulgence and falsehoods. And if you want to see real savages, look at social media, particularly in the West. People riddled with insecurity, bitterness, sniping at each other, inflammatory comments or posts designed to get them likes or comments, all laden with drama with the intent of projecting their own failures onto other people. Be it their friends, family, social media friends, the government, the deep state, the cabal, the Illuminati, the Order, plus some even blame the off-world. And that's the top and bottom line of it. Truth becomes a byword to the low self-esteem, the insecure, and the vessels riddled with a malignant venom of their own making. Their lives are shit, dark and devoid of humanity, because the truth hurts them so much. Because what comes with truth is personal responsibility, which is a no-no for far too many on this planet, whether awake or asleep. As I stated earlier, people who are intent on making others accountable, yet neglect their own accountability or being accountable as well. Social media is riddled with it. Most people walk past or step over the homeless in the street because they're seen as lesser people. But they're no different to you or I. But with a comparative and competitive mindset, they are seen as lesser people, which is no different to the working class frowning on people who are on benefits, no different to the middle class frowning on the working class, no different to the upper class frowning on the middle class, no different of the elites frowning upon the upper class, and no difference for the order frowning on the elite families. And it's no different to the former trustee frowning on us all. Nobody told us to do that. We just did it. How many people in the world genuinely care that 900,000 children go missing in America each year? 49,000 children die each day. 1.3 billion have no electricity. 1 billion have no clean water. And over 3 billion don't have a decent home. Yes, our members have heard about it. But did your life change because of it? Did it cause you to be more grateful of what you have, not what you haven't? The People's Club donations sent a package of food basics, medicine and child essentials to a small village in Venezuela, after their country was ransacked by the same clowns running and ruining this country. It was a small gesture. It didn't require much funding and was a godsend to that village. Much can be done with little. Yet people feel you need a lot to do much. It's the mindset. You have lawyers charging $200 to $300 an hour to read or write crap. People charging thousands of dollars for consultations and $1,000 for fake presentations. I heard one story of someone charging $75,000 for that line of work recently. That's 3 years' pay for the average service worker in this country. Yet $75,000 can feed a whole village for a year in most cases. It's all about perspective. Examples in New Age style social media people presenting themselves as spiritualists, then charging $200 to $400 to hear one line of kumbaya bullshit after another. We've got one member in our group who charges people $2,000 to meet and greet him. It beggars belief. Goddess this, angel that, star seeds like they're the only ones who came from the stars. We all did. The arrogance is astounding. We had millions of love and light people in the late 60s. Did the world become a better place? No. We have billions extolling the virtue of the church, religion and God, all praying for salvation. Has the world changed with that program? No. It has turned this planet into a war zone. So neither of them programs worked to bring a better world. Why? Because it was all fake, is why. Only those in denial would repeat those programs and expect them to work. Many are still asking for a 2,000-year-old dead man to become a zombie and return to save them. It's madness. Ignoring the fact of that, why would he want to come back? The people all ignored him and left him to die 2,000 years ago. Is that harsh? Yes, but it's the truth. The people never saved him then. What chance would he have now with a baying mob of internet warriors who believe everything except when it comes to the truth? I could give and spend the whole show on what is wrong and how we are responsible for that wrong. And yes, many will point out it is the government, the agencies, the Illuminati who have done this to us all. That is the lie, or at best partially true. We are them and they are us. It's the mirror again. But reality bites, as most was done by us, due to a lack of care for our fellow men, women and children. And failing to address that leads to what we have now. A free-for-all in chaos, confusion, anger, bitterness, envy, and riddled in the worst malignancy of humanity, the self. What is human? do you know? What lies beyond our own self-entitled bubble world? Do you see? Do you feel? Do you sense? Do you have real empathy? And the kicker, do you care? Words often lie. Words have spells. Most of us are oblivious to, but the devious amongst us. But actions don't. In this current time-space vibration, those lies, hidden agendas, masks, projections don't work too well, do they? All of it being exposed on a massive scale, on every single level. And what you see is very ugly, no matter where you're from. The reason being is most people on this planet are fake. We've used fake avatars of ourselves. That's the reality, the mask. Yes, many pretend to be all love and light, throwing out love emojis and memes, but inside, they're far from it. And if that wasn't a correct assessment, the world would be a much better place, would it not? Clearly it's not. All can see that now, whether awake or not. The letter addressed to the top order on this planet was stark in its condemnation of their inability to follow a simple plan and look after the treasures that belong to us all. But if you paid attention and listened closely, that letter could well have been addressed to us all as well. Some of our members recognise that fact. You see, we are no different on every level of society, in every class of society, in every culture of society, in every religion, colour or gender of society. The letter was no different to the Cassandra letter addressed to the alt media. None whatsoever. Now you can all ignore that, and humanity is adept at ignoring things, both externally and internally, or face reality and the brutal truth. We have failed as a collective of what it means to be human, me included. I'm no different. Once a problem is established and the finger pointing away from you stops, then it becomes about solutions to fixing the problem. There is much hope, as well as many are now starting to act in better ways, using their energy to improve things for the all, not just the self. In our own group, there are many wonderful examples of people accepting their own responsibility and striving to improve themselves and working towards helping others. I won't list them, as we still have comparative mindset people within and outside the group crying about favouritism. The problem is not that they are favourites. The problem is you and your own unaddressed insecurity. Fix it. It is destroying you, not me or anybody else, just you. That is your responsibility. Many people have helped me to do this job more efficiently than I was previously, before I went on Patreon. For the people who gave $1 a month to some who gave $1,000 a month, I'm grateful to you all, including those who couldn't give in terms of financial support, but they gave their energy of supporting me in bringing about a change. There has to be a near 180 change on many levels of society, as all the previous model has failed on all levels. Some complain about me, and yet none of them would do this work for 5 minutes. They know that deep down. But the comparative mind runs through many people's vessels like a malignant cancer cell. The gist of those who complain is they wish they had the vision, balls and gumption to do what I do, but never had the drive or the vision to do so. So rather than trying to elevate themselves into a similar position, they take the easy way out and try and drag their target of envy down to their level. This is why, as a collective, we all fail. Do you not see that? Everyone dragging each other down means we all end up at the bottom. Like war, an eye for an eye, and we all end up blind. How is that progressive? Is that being human? This show is about harsh truth reality, and it is harsh. It has to be, because we've all gorged on bullshittery all our lives. This show is about elevating us all, and I mean all. And many of our members have complained to me that I don't give myself enough credit. Yes, I see that, but then that's putting me on a pedestal. The drive for me is we're all on the pedestal, not just the one. The one is replicating the old system. The old system created for us has failed. But it was created for us because we didn't take responsibility to create a system for ourselves. And if people think playing the old movie over and over again like Groundhog Day will bring change, you're as deluded as they come. Stuck in the programs and the programming of non-creative thinking, and let's all play bots of copy and repeat. Is that being human? For source sakes, wake up. Education, government, health, charity, finance, war and military, class structure, culture, religion and businesses have all failed. And failed spectacularly. Not as spectacular of what was known as the order, but nonetheless if all failed. To the few who really knew what has gone on this planet, we knew it was all designed to fail is why. Are we really that stupid to keep repeating failed old models? Or do we analyse each section and come up with a solution of a better way for the first time in 110,000 years at least? That is the task we all face going forward. Our past legacy is not pretty, and people can carry on projecting at others. The reality is they are projecting at themselves. It's the mirror again. And this is why you are seeing so many in public, alt and social media accusing others of doing what they have done or participated in themselves. Oops. Their own lack of humanity prevents them from seeing what the observer sees. The problem is you. But sadly, you're not alone in that thinking. It is a pandemic within society. Cassandra said, "We have told you the truth." And even the few amongst you relaying the truth are dismissed and ridiculed to a point of exasperation. That is a fact. For the people who believe in Jesus, what did his followers or the people do to protect him? Nothing. Radomir and Mary Magdalene. Again, nothing, but a very few who tried to protect them. Anna in the 1500s. Again, the peoples did nothing. Well, actually they did. They stood up and cheered in the square as she was burnt alive by the Catholic Church for daring to teach the truth. Fact. Is that being human? All people who stand up for the real truth get treated the same way. Denigrated, abused, threats of violence, their lives destroyed trying to help the all. That is the price people pay for trying to help you. Kim and I have gone to great lengths to help the all, and that is what we got in return for doing so. Shane Naruna, Randy Morgans, Alan James as well. Think about that for a while. You can't blame any other organisation for doing that. It's the people. Humanity as a collective who did and does that. And what is worse is your own friends and family do the most damage. Is that being human? Hi all. What is human? Have we defined it? Like, what will life be like in a better world? Too few have defined it. What does it mean? What does it entail? How will we go about it? How will we achieve it? Do you want to achieve it? Do we want to achieve it? Is there a plan? We have a plan. But do you have a plan? Or are you too content for others to make a plan for you, which is exactly what transpired in the old model, is it not? Where is your plan? Where are your solutions? Why is there a propensity to only bring problems or faults with others? Pushing others into making a plan for you is dissolving your own responsibility. So when the few only back the plan and it fails, people can then point fingers at those who failed. But that is the illusion. A plan fails as the all didn't participate in it to make it work. If the all participate in it, any plan has a better chance of prevailing. But people fight over being the leader, their ideas are better than yours, or they want to control the plan and or the narrative. For an example of that, look in our own THI state and country groups. It's no different to the politicians. Too busy arguing over pedantics and control, self-serving agendas, rather than coming to a common consensus and solutions. You can't deny it. That happened. Awake are no better than sleepers in that mode. Why? Because the you hasn't addressed the self problems. Low self-esteem or confidence, ego imbalance, and the comparative and competitive mindsets are the ills in us all. These are the reasons behind our collective continuing failure in life. You are responsible for that change. If you don't, and you end up going in a group setting, you then trigger others to jump back to the old model way. Then it becomes a loop, a hamster wheel of repeated and repetitive failure mindsets. The change is you. You are the change. It's symbiotic and infectious. Like attracts like. You can attract negative, which is the subset of humanity now, or you can be and attract positive, higher vibrational energies. The choice is yours. Are you going to create change and be different? Or say you will be creating change, but run the same failed old model program? Because there are too few who are aware of what's going on within them or around them, what you're seeing now is people, they essentially have become vacant, empty shells. Vessels whose programming ran out and failed. And there's no one to tell them what to do now. So panic ensues. And this is what we are all witnessing currently. They are like a child's first time on a bicycle, waiting for a parent to push them along. Thrashing about with no direction, life whizzing past them, the majority of which they are completely oblivious to. Look around you. Nothing works. People are going nuts. Behaviour and demeanours get more bizarre by the day. Hey, let's all eat babies to save the planet. eat humans to stop climate change. Sounds like an off-world restaurant, that to me. But they warned you all of this back in 1991. The movie Silence of the Lambs. You didn't think that was about entertainment, did you? I recently said fact is fiction and fiction is fact. Do you understand that concept now? Most people just thought that woman saying let's eat babies was a joke. It's not. It's implanting the seed in people's psyche. From eating babies to sexually molesting children at any age. They are programming you to accept it. And as they know most people ignore everything they do, they get away with it. The few that challenge it then becomes targets by internet warriors, some of which are paid to do so, or coerced into doing so by the fact that the authorities have dirt on them and are using that as a leverage against them. Who are you? Some will reply, I am me. But what is you? Have you defined what you is? Are you the body, the spirit, the soul, the mind? Do you realize a body without a spirit dies in organic humans? It is the primary cause of death in the sleep. The spirit didn't make it out of the astral level, was attacked and consumed by the energy harvesters contained within that realm. Science won't tell you that. Neither will your doctor, psychologist or hospital. They just say it's unexplainable. It's not. It's clearly explainable, but who wants to hear it? A new chapter of what it means to be human will have to be defined and rewritten going forward. All cultures are culpable and responsible for this current mess. Don't believe me? Here's a small reminder based on the collective, not the individuals. White people, based in greed, all about the self, walk around with fake avatars as the real person. Have a serious alcohol abuse problem. Have numbers of white people within elite circles with vast wealth, none of which is shared amongst their own people. Your history is false. Black people in America and Africa. Lots of ill-gotten gains from drugs, gun running, prostitution, none of which is shared within your own community. Creating ghettos, high levels of violence and deaths between your own people, trading your own people as slaves long before the Europeans arrived. Your history is false. Tribal groups, again involved in clandestine money-making schemes, plus oil and casinos, and yet none of it is given to your own people. Forced into living in shacks and ramshackle reservations, forcing their own people to work as slave labour on the reservations. You are stated to be in tune with Mother Nature, and yet drill right through her to harvest bacteria poop for monetary gain. That is not being in tune with nature. Stated to be in touch with the spirit world and promote psychedelic concoctions that puts people in grave danger because you are ignorant of the facts. Fake shamans with less than a year's training, all designed to make money, none of which is shared with their own people. Your history is false also. India and that region of Asia. You run a caste system even to this day. That was blamed on the Dutch and the British, and yet you still persist with it 72 years later. Is it the Raj or the Ra? 8 of the top 10 richest people are Indian. Yet do they share amongst their own people? Like all of the groups, the answer is no. Forced marriages, forcing children into marriages, making out Buddha and Hinduism is based on your culture. It's not. It's fake. The Rus tried to teach you a better way. You failed. 1/3 of the world's hunger problem is in India alone. 7,000 die each day in India from hunger. So much for your Buddha and Shiva teachings being about love and consideration. Your history is false also. Australia, New Zealand, the group who sold humanity out 16,500 years ago for weapons against the local tribe. The Aboriginal group, also corrupt, gaining back their lands only to sell it on to developers, create oil fields, none of which the proceeds goes back to their own people. Your history is false also. Hispanic peoples, like the black population, involved in clandestine money programs against your own people, using them as slaves and patsies, involved in drugs, plundering, trafficking, child sex related programs, and in Central America, child ritual programs. None of the proceeds goes back to your own people. Your history is false also. The Middle East, riddled with the same criminality as above, add in religious fervorism, and you have a cocktail of violence, death and destruction. Your history is more fake than the rest combined. Vast quantities of minerals, treasures and artifacts, the proceeds of which are not shared with your own people either. You can't even share the land. Chinese and Japan, again riddled with gang warfare, generating vast profits off their own people, again not shared amongst their own people. Even in Hong Kong, there's been an incredible surge in wealth in recent years. Did they share it? No. Pol Pot, Chairman Mao and many other leaders in that country murdered millions of Chinese people over a difference of opinion. Yakuza and triad gangs assembled vast wealth. Again, none of it shared with their own people. The world has 838 million people undernourished. And yet we have 1.6 billion overweight, of which 742 million are obese. That in and of itself shows a lack of sharing. Need, not greed. People say there is no money, and yet so far this year, $316 billion has been spent on illegal drugs alone. It's all about priorities, isn't it? The role of the archetype mother is to care for the children. Yet to date this year, there has been 33.5 million abortions globally. You can make excuses for a portion of those aborted births, but nowhere near that figure. Two million people to date this year have died of alcohol abuse. Can afford to buy alcohol, which is not a basic in life, but not feed the millions starving around the world. All a classic example of greed, not need, of looking after the self and not the all. Millions poured into the UN and charities globally. The figures I looked up was for 2017. It was estimated that $402 billion was given to charity for various causes, from children to care, health, malnutrition, animal welfare, etc. And yet not one statistic has shown any improvement in those areas. Not one. We had Live Aid and vast billions were given to the African people. Did it improve one iota? Are they all fed? No. Just another slush fund for greedy, self-serving bastards is what it is. Charity CEOs on $400,000 a year plus. Those people are not interested in charity, only serving themselves. As an example, my salary for the People's Club was set at $50,000 a year. Like I said, need, not greed. So we ask the question again, what is human? Is this section a fair example of being human? Many will dismiss it, a common theme. Many will react badly to it, again, a common theme. And a few will look at themselves and go, you know what? All of that is the truth. We have failed each other badly. In the old system way, the people had one role in a recurring plot put forward by the policymakers. They repeated it over and over again. And like bots, we copied and repeated it over and over again. By being lazy-minded and lacking critical thinking. That one role was called reaction. The order had a new solution, so they then created the problem to push forward their solution. We, the people, provided the reaction time and time again. They wanted war in the Middle East. They fed the Western world a story People reacted to it, and off to war we went. To those that disagreed with it at the time, this next line does not apply to you. Those that went along with it believe in fake news. You are partially responsible for the deaths of 1.8 million Iraqis alone, along with 6,500 Americans. That's not fair, people will cry. It was the politicians. But you voted for them. You left them to make decisions for you. You are just as responsible for the actions of your country as anybody else. Going forward, we must all see the problems, generate the right reaction of a goal to fix it, then come up with the solutions to solve the problem. All people, not just politicians. They are the equivalent of the gladiator arenas in Rome. We are the spectators, and you throw people into the lion's den to get savaged, sitting there cheering as they get ripped to shreds, not realising the reason those people are getting shredded is because the people didn't take responsibility. It's always someone else's problem. No, that problem is you. Millionaires and billionaires, is that being human? Vulture capitalism, is that being human? Child traffickers, is that being human? Militaries awarding badges for killing people, is that being human? Spending more on military and weapons than food or health, is that being human? Religious people confessing to be all holy and God-loving, yet rape their communities, traffic children, mentally, physically and sexually abuse them, is that being human? Creating wars of my God's better than your God, is that being human? Many will blame the ancestors, and there is some justification in that narrative. But we, this last 2 generations, have all been in the timeline of the greatest jump in knowledge this current civilization has seen via the internet. And what has changed from a collective standpoint? Ignorance back then was easily controlled and passed on to the masses. Ignorance now is a choice that all of you bear responsibility for. Are you part of the problem or part of the solution? Will you ask or demand change, or will you be the change? Will you be mired in fear and victimhood programs, or take responsibility and shine like a beacon? Part 3 will be for the latter. Hi all, and welcome back to the final piece of tonight's show. We'll start off again. So what is human? Our record outlined to date is not too pretty a picture, is it? In the fake book written by controlling elites men, not by God or source, it states, let us create man in our image. Now, I have gone on record to state that book was written about the Anunnaki groups and their offspring. They all carried the mark of the Nephilim. From Melchizedek to Genghis Khan, Cohen, to the Indian gods, to Noah, as did Noah's offspring Shem and Ham. All it was said that they had a coat of armour when born, described as scaly skin, and no, it wasn't eczema or psoriasis, it was reptile skin. Many have interpreted the term "let us create man in our image." Too few ask, who is us and what is our? I thought it was said there was only one God who made us. Are there more than one? But many took that statement as a sign that they made man literally. They didn't. They, the gods, fake ones at that, set about turning man into their image. We were not like them. Via mind control and low vibrational frequency traits, divide and conquer and hierarchy all came from them. Now they are gone and can no longer interfere on the levels previously. There will always be some who wish to continue that program. We have enough humans who are as psychotic as their leaders were. What are we going to do to create man in a new image, a new light? We have an opportunity to forge our own path for the first time in history, without interference. Do we like our current image? Labelled as savages by some, labelled as low intelligence by others. Is that what we wish to be labelled by? Or will the collective stand up and finally take some responsibility for the mess this world is in? Come together and forge a better path. Whilst they created the image, like bots, we followed it. When a little circumspect reflection of yourself and the world around you could have easily changed this abomination a long time ago. We failed. THI has been on a journey of correcting the past ills and exposing the hidden world too few could see and even less believed. What made us different is we pointed the fingers not just at those who hurt, controlled or damaged us, but at the mirror and back towards us, and what our role was in it. You can't create solutions by looking at only half of the problem. That is why this world is in a mess. Too few see the bigger picture. Too few realise there's a bigger picture, never mind see it. Too few critical think or analyse, and the ones that do analyse largely do it for negative purposes via think tank groups. Think stupid groups, more like it. Too many are reminiscent of the children in kindergarten class, listening to the teacher read a book to them, or worse, George Bush Jr. All just swallowed it up and regurgitated it ad nauseum. Only the few asked the questions of its validity or whether it was true or not. And adults are no different to those children. The children had an excuse. They were learning the world and were relatively new to it. Adults don't have that excuse. You chose to be a bot, listen and repeat. That is not being human. That is a machine. Overall, I am pleased at how many of you in the group have embraced the message and gone on to make better changes in your life and those around you. It's arduous, I know, that more than you all. Truth comes at a very heavy cost to those delivering it on this planet. And the least anyone can do is support those who are. Yet we see several examples of those mired in their own shit, projecting it onto others. Do we want a world that throws shit everywhere and creates a massive stink? Or do we take responsibility for ourselves and create a much cleaner world where the stink is in the minority, not the majority? Many of you have took up the mantle and changed yourself, your outlook, your own image, and some have gone on to help others to do the same. This group has taken many members off long-term pharmaceutical drugs, other drugs, illegal or otherwise, alcohol abuse, victimhood programs, religious programs, cycles of abuse programs. We've made giant strides in this area. Many have written to me and said their whole lives have changed since being in THI. People from all over the world have never even met me, all stating the show turned their life around. And yet we've all been targeted for doing so. Why is that? Is that being human? They target you not because you are weak, but because you are strong. Never forget that. They target you not because you have external strength, but inner strength. Never forget that. They target you not because you are stupid, but because you have more intelligence than them. Never forget that. They target you not because you don't care, but because you do. Never forget that. They target you not because you have low vibration, but a higher vibration. Never forget that. Remember where you were, head and heart-wise, before THI, and see and feel your own development. No low vibrational person can take that away from you. Never forget that either. I brought forward a vision of how to be, but you delivered it. And the low vibrationals can't take that away from you either. They are lost and stuck in their own world, and their program has ran out. They have no idea what to do, and so they revert back to type of those who created the image for them. The hue in human has three meanings. Higher universal. The Sumerian and Anunnaki term hue means serpent. In Sanskrit it means dragon. Which is it to be, humanity? Dragon Man? We had an example of the Dragon Guardians failing last week. Serpent Man, worshipped by the Catholic Church, or higher universal man. That choice now rests solely in all of your hands. Which of the three will you become? No masks to hide behind now. Relatively no cabal, no Illuminati, no ETs or NT groups, no global martial law, another hidden group decimated this week. Cloak technologies destroyed or revealed. No psychotic AI, no simulation, no matrix. And the top order on this planet decimated down to a relatively few psychopaths. Only fear, threats and a lack of responsibility keeps the illusion that the old order is still in control. The reality is, they're not. There are no more excuses. You are on your own now to create and be creative. Be free or stay in your own enslavement. Are you mind or heart-based? Real or fake? It's all out in the open now. And the frequencies are telling the real truth. Not the lies you spew out or have been fed and absorbed as fact. Disclosure, people cry. You've already had it. That is why you know of it. The question is now, what next? Do we carry on not caring? Carry on not sharing? Carry on in their image or create our own image? That image we create needs to be an almost 180 turn on what went on before that failed. We failed. Now is the time for a new way, a different image, a progressive change and a drive to take this world of children into a progressive, flourishing, adult-based species. The whispers in your ears are getting stronger as the reconnection to the higher self bonds closer and closer. But will you listen? Are you waiting for the event? Or have you realized yet you are the event? We end the show with the question we started with. What is human? Now, with a blank slate, it and we becomes what you make it. choose wisely, and for soul's sakes, learn to be nice to the all. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams.